Hi everyone, and welcome to The Hash, your daily beat on crypto and culture. My name is Naomi Brockwell, delighted to be joined by our other co-hosts, Ben Powers, Jen Sanasie, Will Foxley, and the always whistling Zack Seward. Welcome to the show, guys. And we're going to kick this off today by talking about the huge Coinbase valuation that was just announced. So I'm going to hand this straight over to Ben. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Ian Allison, CoinDesk's resident scoop machine, is reporting that Coinbase is valued at around $77 billion based on secondary market trading before it goes public. Now, Coinbase is the largest US exchange, but I just thought this was really, really interesting. Ian's reporting that, shares on the secondary market are currently going for around $300, which would, at its current valuation, make the company more valuable than the New York Stock Exchange parent company, which is just a little delicious tidbit in this scoop from Ian. But Zach, I want to kick it over to you. What does this mean for the larger crypto market and the opportunity that investors might be seeing in exchanges like Coinbase?
Yeah, for sure. People are super excited about this public listing of Coinbase. Obviously, it comes at a time when Bitcoin is above 50,000, I think, on last check. So the timing is right for this, blue chip crypto exchange, as it may one day be seen as, to go public. So this is the NASDAQ private market. This is, early investors can get a little money off the table should they decide to do so. So Ian was able to talk to a few sources who were familiar with some of the trading going on in these markets. And it really just does speak to sort of the eye-popping valuation that Coinbase may likely fetch when it does have its public listing in a couple months or so. So I think it's interesting. The timing is right. They probably couldn't have timed it any better. Maybe that is part of the calculation. So we'll see what happens when these shares hit public markets at a date uncertain, but it'll certainly be interesting to watch. Yeah, that's my general take on that one.
Yeah, and that share price is high. That is like competing with some of the top tier tech companies that are out there. And Naomi, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, having seen the trajectory of some of these exchanges grows.
I think that Coinbase has done a remarkable job at just setting themselves up as the crypto bank. And they started that off in the early days in a very regulatory uncertain market. They had this, first mover advantage, so to speak, because you had all these traditional financial institutions that were playing it safe, staying well away from this. And Coinbase said, okay, we will be the place to go. We'll make it super easy. People could just link their bank accounts. And that has really benefited them because they've just grown to astronomical heights. And as crypto grows, Coinbase grows as well. It's sort of like when there's a gold rush. Do you go in and go straight for the gold, or do you sell people the axes and the shovels? And what Coinbase did is they sold the tools, and so they're really benefiting tremendously from this.
Yeah, and Will, kind of thinking about that, is this just a valuation that comes from the sort of solidity of the company itself, or is this also just, we've talked about it just now, they couldn't have picked a better time. Is this just part of, number go up, so does valuation?
Yeah, interesting to kind of like the historical perspective, at least over the last year. They battled a lot of headwinds, especially with some of the comments that came out from internal meetings at Coinbase relating to staff issues. Coinbase and Brian Armstrong, the CEO, got a lot of flack for the treatment of certain employees at Coinbase. They were in a few New York Times articles getting bashed left and right, and lo and behold, 9 months later, they're going public. So it'll be interesting to see if that kind of has any effect on their stock price in the next year or so. For now, it just seems like a tech launch right now. Tech is hot. It's always been hot, and it's going to keep going up. Zach?
Yeah, it's worth remembering that Coinbase is also powering a big part of this current narrative, which is institutional adoption of Bitcoin, right? Don't forget that this is the company that facilitated MicroStrategy's massive Bitcoin buy, probably are doing that with a number of large firms behind the scenes. Recently they announced that at the end of 2020, they had $90 billion of assets across the entire platform. So they've really captured both, the attention share of the mass public and both crypto users and the crypto curious, but they've also, by way of acquisitions late last year, have set themselves up very well to serve as this prime broker, right? This white glove service for big institutions who are making large purchases of Bitcoin. So, the positive numbers from Coinbase just, keep coming out. I'm sure that 90 billion figure that was reported recently as at the close of 2020 is larger now. As we see the Teslas of the world go in on this thing. So I think it is really interesting that, investors, at least on the private market, are seeing these numbers and saying, hey, this is probably going to be a hot stock when it goes live.
Yeah, and just one other thing to add, I think it kind of speaks to the way that crypto's been evolving over the last decade. Brian Armstrong founded Coinbase out of his dorm in college, and now it's going to be listed as a stock, which is just insane to think about. And a lot of these early exchanges were just files you could find online. You could boot them up yourself, and then you just had to slowly add liquidity by bringing in market makers and bringing people to trade on your platform. And Coinbase did that the best, and that's why they are in the position that they're at right now.
Yeah, I mean, that is the tech narrative. He's not in his garage, but he's in his dorm room.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to take it to a new frontier of the crypto landscape. We're talking about DeFi, decentralized finance. Earlier today, it was announced that Bitwise, the asset manager, launched a DeFi index fund. And this is, a pool of some of the leading DeFi assets that have been surging in recent months. So I think the question is, are institutional investors ready to dabble in the strange world of weird DeFi when we're talking about tokens such as Uni, Aave, and others? Will, I know you do a lot of DeFi coverage. Again, this is not institutional investors participating in these platforms, but rather investing in the assets that make the economics of DeFi work. So I'm wondering if this is premature on Bitwise's part, an early signal of big things to come, or somewhere in the middle. What's your take on this development?
Well, first, you gotta text me or something before you shave your beard, because I was not ready for that this morning. They're completely different.
It's still me. It's still the same me.
Yeah, it's a little shocking.
It's been
it's been a year or something. Yeah. No, okay. Getting back to the question, I don't know if it's early or not, but they're gonna make money, so good for them. All these DeFi tokens are just shooting so much more upwards than Bitcoin has. I think Aave, it swapped as a token from an old token in summer of 2020, and it was trading at under $50 per token then, and now it's well over $400 a token, and that's going to make up 25% of this index or something like that. So yeah, I think they're just going to make a ton of money on this at the first place. Governance tokens as a asset class is still being proven. It's a lot of money is going into them. But we still have to see if there's actually any governance rights that can be attributed to these tokens. Uniswap, for example, has its own token that famously launched in September, but the token Uni doesn't have a lot of abilities besides kind of directing where the treasury goes for the Uniswap V2 platform. And it's still to be seen how that token is going to interact with Uniswap V3, which is expected sometime in 2021. So that's kind of my high-level take on it. I want to boot that back to you, Zach, because I know you have an opinion, even though you kind of passed on it there.
No, I mean, I think it's super interesting. I think the thing to me is that, is this the gateway drug for big institutional investors to actually use these DeFi protocols as opposed to investing in these assets? I think to me, that's an interesting question. Naomi, are you following this stuff? Are you following DeFi? We obviously had the summer of DeFi. We had weird DeFi. We had all these strange food-related tokens. And now all of a sudden, here's an index fund from one of the leading asset managers in the space. What do you think this sort of portends for DeFi investment going forward?
Well, it could be a couple of things. I've been following it pretty closely because I find it super interesting. I think that DeFi, the philosophy of it, is really exciting. I love the idea of decentralized finance and breaking down some of those barriers to entry, making it more accessible to the average person. I think that's super cool. That's what crypto is all about for me. So I've been really interested to see what's going on in DeFi. It's a mix of, looking forward to the future. Yes, we are going to see more and more of the things we do on the internet become decentralized, but also it's this giant craze, FOMO, people feeling like they're missing out. It's hard to know what percentage weight each of those factors contributes, because obviously there's a lot of FOMO, but I still believe that DeFi is the future. This is where we're headed, whether it's because it's a revolt against regulation or a revolt against, big institutions and people want to participate in these things and they're unable to. A couple of years ago, I was able to interview Jay Clayton, the former SEC chair. It was actually after a consensus event. And I asked him, do decentralized exchanges worry you? Are you worried that the SEC won't have as much control over this stuff? He just said, nope. That was his answer. His entire answer was nope. And it makes me wonder, is he changing his mind now? Because since then, we've had this giant DeFi craze. Everyone's jumping into it. Now we've got institutional investors who are eyeing this area. And I wonder whether, authorities are saying, okay, this is a decentralized thing. This is harder for us to control. There's no single entity involved that we can target or shut down or throw in jail or, or coerce or do anything to. And so I wonder what the future is going to look like as we enter this more decentralized world. It's pretty interesting. Jen, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, Naomi, as you were speaking, I was just thinking, I need to ask you, as someone who's been following this for so long, what does this news signal to your everyday investor, someone who's just starting to learn about DeFi now? What value does this have for them?
I mean, if you're a new person and you're eyeing off DeFi, I would say wait and do a little bit more research before you jump into DeFi. It was so funny during the craze just to see people say, I test in production and I haven't audited this and I'm trying this out. And then suddenly there's $5 trillion that people have thrown into it. And you're like, that people are following these trends and you can kind of expect that these things are going to pop, but it's such a huge risk. I would not encourage new people to jump straight into this. I would encourage them to take it real slowly, understand how crypto works before they put any of their money into this. So yes, it's an interesting signaling device because it shows that this is getting more gravitas as an industry. But I still would say just put on the brakes a little bit and just understand it before you leap in. It's super important that people do that.
All right, we're going to jump into break, but after that, we're going to do more jump-related things and go talk about NBA Top Shot and a digital trading card that fetched a whopping $100,000. Stick with us. We'll do that in a bit. Thanks.
Look at you setting up that alley-oop.
What I would like to cover in history, 20, 30 years ago, would have been the internet. It would have been the whole social media boom. Now this is our turn. This is this generation's turn to cover the future of money, Web 3.0. We're going to see a huge paradigm shift. We're going to see how it lives digitally, natively in the internet. We're going to see that transformation shift. We're building a financial system across the world with Bitcoin, several other cryptocurrencies, digital currencies made by central banks, and that is going to be epic.
Welcome back to The Hash, everyone. So latest news going back to Coinbase, their waitlist for Ethereum 2.0 staking is now live. Now, what exactly does that mean? So basically, Ethereum is moving to proof of stake. And in December, they launched their Beacon Chain smart contract, which is the backbone of the Ethereum 2.0 network. Now, this contract essentially provides a bridge between old Ethereum and new Ethereum. And now Coinbase customers can sign up to stake their ETH in the Beacon Chain smart contract, earning up to 7.5% per year, which is pretty interesting. So I'm going to handball this over to you, Ben. Can you explain more about what exactly is happening here and why this is important?
I mean, I was going to bounce it back to you because I'm trying to sort that out in some of these ways. And Will, maybe as our Ethereum expert here, you could help me understand this a little better. And what are the big picture implications for this? I know proof of stake is different from proof of work. And maybe, an analogy in my mind is that proof of stake lets you kind of bid or put your money into some of these things incrementally. such as a Robinhood might for buying stocks rather than being an institutional investor. Am I thinking about that correct? Me, tell me how I am wrong.
No, Ben, I'll never correct you. So essentially how this works. No. So for Coinbase, the interesting thing here is anyone who buys Ether on Coinbase can immediately stake it onto the ETH2 network. Traditionally or typically, you would have to set up your own validator. You'd have to go through a bunch of hoops just to be able to validate on ETH2. And this brings a lot of retailers into the world of bleeding edge tech. So just as a recap, ETH2 launched in December with the Beacon chain. It's an in-production technological wonder, honestly. They only have 1/3 of it done, but it's going to be the future home of the Ethereum network, which is the second largest blockchain by market cap as of right now. And a lot of the DeFi applications we see, like lending or trading or whatnot, are built on Ethereum. And those apps one day should live on ETH2. And so, Ben, kind of you're basically right. This kind of allows retailers to participate in ETH2 in a way that they wouldn't be able to otherwise. Kraken also has some features with ETH2. I don't know if they allow you to access it in the same manner. Typically, you have to have 32 Ether to validate, and I think that's what Kraken requires, maybe not. But Coinbase, you can stake any amount of Ether you have. If you have 1 Ether, if you have a half Ether, you can stake, which is pretty interesting. Passing over to Naomi.
Yeah, going back to why this is important. So we've been watching ETH2 be in the works for years and years and years. And, it was a long time ago that they first said, let's transition over to a proof of stake network. And they realized that, in terms of scaling, in terms of fees, ETH 2.0 is just going to be a lot better for the network. They quite rightly envisioned all of this stuff that was going to be put onto ETH, all of this DeFi that we're seeing. So many projects that are using ETH as their backbone, and that has made fees skyrocket. So the idea is that the proof of stake is going to really alleviate that. It's been a long time coming, and it's just every time we hear about this is our next milestone, this is our date, it gets pushed back, and finally December last year, as you said, Will, this Beacon chain launched, and it's like stage one of like this 4 or 5 step process. So we're really at the beginning of this transition that lots of people are just waiting for with great anticipation. It's super exciting because if they can fix the fees on Ethereum, wow, that would be amazing. Jen, what were you going to say about this?
I just wanted to step back and ask Will, can you explain for a broader audience what exactly staking is? And am I right in assuming that the takeaway here is that there's a lower barrier to entry?
Yeah, you're correct there. For Coinbase, staking is a way lower barrier of entry because anyone with Ether can stake on Coinbase. 1 Ether, 32 Ether, doesn't matter. Staking basically is you deposit funds just like a bank account, and those funds are validating transactions on the Ethereum network. So if we look at the Bitcoin network, you have mining, right? Which is these miners all over the world competing with math puzzles to they're solving them against each other, and whoever gets it first gets to build a block, put transactions in it, and add it to the network, and then they get a coin reward for doing that. For staking, anyone can stake. You put 32 Ether into the network, and then your deposits act as collateral for transacting the network. So if you try to add a transaction that's incorrect or like invalid or whatever to the network, that 32 Ether can be slashed, and so you lose money. So the idea is like collateralizing the transactions instead of using mining behind it. That's kind of the idea. Did I explain that well? I don't know if that went down
totally
too much.
It feels like it's even more decentralized than before.
That is one argument for it being better than Bitcoin mining for sure. There's also an environmental argument that a lot of Ethereans are big proponents of.
Right. I think that there's definitely an exciting move. I want this to happen already. I am really impatient about this. It's been a long time coming, but it's so great to see it finally moving. It's great to see Coinbase involved because, as you mentioned, Bill, you don't need 32 ETH in order to validate a node anymore. Anyone can stake any amount. You can put 0.01 ETH and you can still be part of this and be earning returns. So that's really, really cool. So let's jump over move track now. I want to talk about these crazy NFTs that are happening. Will walk us through the news there.
That's right. I think we've been talking about NFTs every day that we're on the show, which just means that it's a bullish market for NFTs, and which is also on Ethereum. So we're kind of staying in the same lane. But essentially, the news here is from ESPN, Brian Workhorst, who's one of the premier reporters over there, showing that NBA Top Shot had one of its NFTs sell for $100,000. This NFT is basically a tokenized, let's say like a video play of New Orleans, I think is a forward, Zach, you can probably correct me there, but Zion Williams blocking another player in his debut for the Pelicans. I think it was 2 seasons ago now. And the NFT is basically just like, it's a wrapped image on the Top Shot platform. And you can technically view the image on YouTube, but people are accruing value to these things because they have some sort of tokenized nature to them. So I want to toss it down to Zach, who just loves the sports stuff.
I love sports. I really do.
Sports.
I love sports. Yeah, no, Top Shot is crazy. Top Shot exists on the Flow blockchain, which is a creation of Dapper Labs, which used to live on Ethereum with CryptoKitties. They had a hard time making Ethereum work for them, so they built their own blockchain. It's on Flow. Dapper seems to be the only people building on Flow at the moment, as far as I can tell, but presumably some of the second-order marketplaces that come when a robust market exists will pop up on Flow, hopefully. But yeah, I think the Top Shot thing is really crazy in that it's captivating a lot of interest outside of typical crypto dork circles. So, you said that the Woj filed that story on the Zion thing, fetching 100K. It's pretty cool. Guys like Darren Ravel and other sort of sports media fixtures have sort of discovered Top Shot and are sort of making a lot of noise around it. So I think, again, this represents what could be a crossover moment for crypto stuff. I want to do a basketball pun metaphor, but I failed. Jumping over to the mainstream. We'll still see. I mean, this could be like Will, like you said, this could be like the top signal of the top of the NFT market froth. But I think there's still a lot more to come here as collectibles find a digital form that makes sense. Ben, take it away.
All right, I just got to jump in briefly and do a few corrections for you, Will. It's Zion Williamson, who came to the league last year as one of the most hyped rookies since LeBron James. Hence,
Ben is the NBA podcast listener here. Yeah,
it's true. This is my escapism from the pandemic, even though there is no way to escape from it. So I just had to briefly jump in that regard, and that is why this thing is so valuable. But I think, something that stuck out for me in this article is, not only is this thing selling for a lot, but it's giving the league an opportunity to cash in on secondary markets. Kind of during the pandemic, trading cards have also seen a huge increase in value. And I've referenced this, the last show. But I thought that was really interesting. Is it my understanding here that in some ways this is going to let the league cash in on these markets that are going on, but also potentially the estates of some of the players? I saw this reference. Will, can you tell me a little bit more about that aspect of it?
Yeah, I might have to boot that down to Zach, but from my understanding, NBA Top Shot has acquired the rights from the NBA and the NBPA, which is National Basketball Players Association, which is like the union for NBA players. And some of the value, I think, does trickle down to NBA players. I mean, they always get their cut, but I think Zach has more of the details on that.
Actually, no, not really. I don't really have a ton of details on that.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Sports desk editor doesn't even know.
Hey man, there's so much going on. I can only be sports desk for so much of my day, unfortunately. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Ethereum, which is where most NFTs live. This is again an exception to that. It lives on its own blockchain. Some of the economics around NFTs have gotten really interesting. There's ways to have fractional ownership of really valuable NFTs, and the financialization of NFTs, sort of this mashup of DeFi, yield farming, and NFT digital collectibles has sort of, breathed new life into this sector in the last few months. And I think we're seeing that now. But I am eager to see when, additional infrastructure around Top Shot happens. Right now, it's pretty much just it's a walled garden, pretty much, right? It's the only thing on Flow, as far as I can tell. It exists within a platform that is administered by a well-capitalized company. But the Flow blockchain on which it's built, is a blockchain like any others. It has its own token, the Flow token, which raised a bunch of money through a token sale, I think last fall. So it's going to be interesting to see what else comes onto Flow in addition to these Savage Dunks, which are so cool. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we're going to take a
Would any
short
of
break
you-
now, but up next, Jake Paul and Ben Phillips, YouTube stars, discuss creating their own cryptocurrencies. Coming up next after the break.
You're watching The Hash, where we talk about the latest and greatest when it comes to crypto and culture. Now, before the break, I was going to ask a question. I need to get it in. Would any of you pay $100,000 for a sports-related NFT? And if so, what would it be?
Well, that story was
I would
about
not.
me. So
No.
Yeah, so-
Coindesk pays those big bucks for me to get those NFTs. I don't think I would.
Can I expense
it'd be
it?
kind of fun. I tried to get in on NBA Top Shot during the summer, and then I had like an access pass, but I couldn't get it to work because so many people wanted to use it. So many people, which is kind of cool to see. Kind of NFTs seem really niche, but a lot of people want it. Zach has like 40 NFTs though, right?
Dude, I wish, man. I just have common NFT. It's just plebe
NFT
NFT.
whale.
I wish.
Okay, moving on. YouTube star Jake Paul talked about creating his own cryptocurrency, and in an interview with the Forbes contributor, he said that he and fellow YouTube creator Ben Phillips have discussed it. So I want to ask you guys, are all of these celebrities and pseudo celebrities just clout chasing at this point? And when is it time for them to stop? Like, I think maybe let's not make your own coin, maybe get into the NFT game. Seems more on brand.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that making your own coin is so like 2015, 2016, maybe 2017. And since then, I mean, now we're in the DeFi world, now we're in an NFT world, like things have evolved and these YouTubers have got to catch up. They're like, that's not too quick on the uptake there. I agree, Jen, with what you're saying. Like when you create your own cryptocurrency, you need network effect. For a currency to be successful, you need a huge number of people to want this, accept it, needs to be useful. There are all of these things that come into play. Otherwise, it's just going to fail. But an NFT is something that lives in itself, right? It's a token. It's something like memorabilia. It's a keepsake. And so I think this is far better suited to people who are influencers who want to make their mark and create some sort of digitalized asset. I just don't think that people should be making their own coins anymore. Like, I don't know, unless you're cutting edge tech, but not if you're just putting your face on something. And like, what is that contributing? Sorry, Ben, what were you going to say?
I mean, I was just going to say I look forward to them burying this coin amongst the graveyard of other alts that are out there. What are they going to do? Start an ICO next? There's just it is such a dated thing, and the one thing the world does not need right now is another new personally branded cryptocurrency. But Zach, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll push back a little bit. I mean, I think the social token thing is kind of interesting. Like you think about it in the context of like a musician, right? And I must confess, I didn't read this story, but DJ, I think his name is Blau with a 3 at the front. He sort of tokenized an album, and I think there's like an associated currency around it. But if you look at like, say, around music rights, right, where you're an artist with your own token, there's ways that you can monetize your content in a way that escapes some of the traditional intermediaries that capture so much of that value in the streaming game. So I think there are ways to do it. Like, it's kind of unclear. Is this Jake Paul guy, just first of all, is this like the boxer guy? Is he that guy who had like a boxing match or something?
In boxing. So him and his brother are YouTube stars. He's the younger brother.
There's 2 of them. Okay. Yeah. So is this the old one or the new one? I'm sorry. I'm just like dumb old guy question. This is the younger one. Okay, cool. So I think like the details, like, the devil is in the details, right? And I think, what we could call an NFT or a social token might be very different than like just a straight cryptocurrency like we saw in 15, 16, 17, like Naomi was saying. So I think, again, I'm kind of into this idea as social tokens as carnival tickets, right? Got a token, take a ride. And this could be that. We may see some future development around it, but I think for creators who have these followings, more power to them. If they can find new experiments to monetize those followings, then have at it. We're seeing that in the social token arena already, and if this is just the latest dude to hop on, then so it goes.
Zach, it's interesting you bring that up because both of these creators together, I think, have 8 billion views on YouTube. So
8 billion.
8 billion views.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's nothing on the hash, but hey, maybe they'll catch up. Maybe they'll catch up.
I do feel like with these, the difference between NFTs and cryptos, like I do feel like crypto, if you're creating your own, it's like this unnecessarily middleman, because you have to create this market for it and all of these things in order to cash it in for things that the artist is producing. Why not just tokenize the actual things they're producing? Like, I don't know. It could be interesting. We'll see what comes of it. And with 8 billion views, maybe they could make something interesting from it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely
right.
right.
Chasing subscribers.
Yeah, history here would indicate that we be very suspicious of such activities. So I think that's certainly a good note to close on. So we are going to close on that because that's the end of the show today. So thanks for tuning in to The Hash on Thursday, February 17th. It was really fun. Stick around, CoinDesk TV later today at 3 p.m. What day is it today? It's Friday, right? Friday, right?
What is time?
Dang. So wrecked again by the calendar. Anyway, well, stick around on today, Wednesday, the 17th, at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have All About Bitcoin with Christine Lee. I think we're going to be joined by the CEO of Fireblocks, which is an interesting company powering a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So stick with us. For me, Zach, for Naomi, for Will, for Ben and Jen, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.
Till then.
On Friday.
See ya.